from Essex. And with that, we are live. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to the Light 'em Up Lounge. Welcome back here in these wonderful and comfortable surroundings of our virtual lounge. I'm delighted to welcome all of you joining us here today, whether it's live at the lounge or over on Facebook. Thanks everybody for chiming in, taking time out of your precious days to spend some time with us here and to talk about this week in particular, humidification, humidors, cigar storage, cigar aging, and who better to discuss all of this with than Marc André, who has to be considered the authority when it comes to cigar aging and cigar storage. So it is my pleasure and privilege to welcome Marc here with us live at the lounge. Marc, last week I spoke with Heiko, who joined us here, and Heiko reminded me that he was the second guest during our second ever Light 'em Up live show, and you were with us back then. So you're kind of a long time fellow and friend here of the Light 'em Up Lounge. But I'm extremely happy and honored that you agreed to join us today and spend time with us and in depth talk about cigar storage and aging. And so welcome back. Welcome to the Light 'em Up Lounge. And again, many thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Now, the obvious question, Marc, how does one actually become one of the world-leading authorities when it comes to cigar aging and cigar storage? I know you've been a long-term aficionado, but how did you venture into what you're doing today, everything around their Humidor and your inspiring work regarding humidification devices, humidors, and storage and aging of cigars?
You really want to hear that, because it takes a little time how I came to the cigar and to the humidor making.
We have plenty of time, so fire.
it's really a ridiculous story, because it's everything started with a failure. Because when I was, I think, 19, I had my first cigar in Switzerland, and well, was the time short after the school, before beginning the study, the university, and well, no money, and I was always in front of the shops looking to the humidors, and I don't know why, but these small mini cabinets or boxes, they were fascinating all the time. And well, I know I need a humidor, but they were too expensive. It was in 1991, yeah, and that was not the time with Chinese import humidors for 50 euros or something like that. We had the old big traditional brands like Davidoff or Daniel Möbus or Manning, and these boxes costs about 1,000 D-Mark minimum, and well, it was so expensive. So I decided to make my own humidor, and I knew, well, cedar wood inside. Okay, cedar wood inside. I went to a carpenter and told him, well, I need 6 plates for covering a small cabinet of my grandma. I want to make a humidor, and he made me this wood. I installed it, and I always asked me, hey, come on, I can store my socks or my under trousers or something like inside of this cabinet, because it was a complete different smell. I know that from the cigar, from a standard humidor. And then I remarked, oh well, I got the wrong cedar wood, the Canadian cedar wood, the aromatic one, yeah, against the moths and for shoes, you know, these it has a special taste, and all the cigars smell of this wood. And then I asked people, and yeah, well, you need Spanish cedar wood. Well, and in my young naivety, I called in Spain. Yeah, I tried to explain the suppliers of wood in Spain that I need Spanish cedar wood, and they said, "Come on, in Spain we have no woods, and cedar is not growing there, so we have no idea what you want." And well, then I found out that this wood comes from South America or from Africa, and I tried to get it, but it was a little bit difficult, because no carpenter, no wood supplier here in Germany had this wood. And well, I had a friend. He makes his studies on the VAT, the Very Large Telescope in Chile, and he was in Germany for an expat vacancies. And we were sitting at the fire in the evening, drinking a glass of rum and smoking a cigar. And then I told him, well, I have the problem, I can't get this wood. And he told me, well, I have a colleague in Chile, and his brother, he's working in the wood, in the lumber branch. And I said, well, okay, yeah, I can ask him. Okay, I didn't. I thought, well, it was only a story, but indeed, some weeks later, he gave me a number of La Mapa in South America, and I contacted them and asked for the Spanish cedar wood, and said, yeah, we have that, but I don't need a huge amount of it, only 3 square meters. Huh? Okay. And they sent me a order, and said, oh, well, okay, I make a sign, but there was no price on it. I said, okay, no price. Well, I think it's not very expensive, so okay. And what really irritating, they didn't ask for a prepayment, because of the contact to this brother, and say, well, it's a good connection, and you pay if you have the lumber. Okay. And then some weeks later, I got a call from Rotterdam, from the port there, and they asked me, hello, Mr. André, how can we send the wood to you? I said, well, put it in a parcel and send it. Well, that's a little bit difficult by 3 cubic meters. I said, what? Yes, it's 2.6 tons of wood. Well, I wanted to save money, yeah, and now I had to pay nearly 7,000 euros for the lumber, and well, it was not really a good situation, and that was in no, it was 7,000, not euros, 7,000 D-marks. It was in 1998. And that was the beginning of the internet shops. Yeah, it was well, in 1998. You ask, well, is the picture in my internet shop 10 or 20 kilobytes, because the loading time was exorbitant? Well, interesting time. I had a lot of wood now in my garden. I rent an old big how you call it, Scheune. Reinhard, was heißt Scheune?
Like a wooden shed in your garden.
Yes, from a farmer to put the wood inside. And well, that was starting with Humidor Bau, that means humidorconstruction.de. And in this internet shop was one product. It was Spanish Cedar wood, because I had to sell it, yeah. So I didn't plan to make humidors but that was the beginning. And then people asked me, okay, what about the hinges? What about humidification system, and so on and so on. And well, it was never the plan to make humidors professionally. From 2000 to 2006, I was managing director of an IT security company, and the humidor making was beside. And I remarked, well, very, very different jobs. And then in 2006, I had to decide, well, I only concentrate to the humidor making, and that was the right decision, yeah. And well, then one comes to the other. I started with developing the first electronic humidification devices, and well, now we deliver the humidors for and the whole technique for Davidoff or for Philippe or for whatever. Yeah? So it was yeah. It was never planned.
I mean, Mike, I think it's an incredible story, but how does one go from just having a shit ton of wood in your backyard to crafting pieces of art, and like by far the best and most functional humidification devices out there? I mean, there's so much technical understanding and knowledge behind that, and it's part art, part science, part construction ingenuity. Were you into that? Like, did you have any previous experience in manufacturing such things, or was it all learning by doing and as you moved on?
Well, one of the most important thing was I had a little experience in electronics, because when I was 16, 17 years old, my friend and mine, we were fascinating from James Bond, yeah. And the small, we say in German, Wanzen, that means the small devices for espionage, you know, to spy somebody out. And we constructed these devices, and we received it in the old radio, what the neighbor said. And so a little electronic experience exists. And the real reason why making humidors was, I bought my first humidor and I was so disappointed, because it starts stinking muddy inside, and it was really ugly. And the cigars on the tablet were moldy, and I was really pissed, because I spent so much money and it didn't work. And well, beginning the 2000s, there were no electronic humidification devices. It was all the passive classical green floor sponges inside, like Elie Bleu did and all the others, and it was not working. Yeah, it was the time when I asked cigar smoker, how do you humidify your cigar? They say, well, I cut an apple and I put half an apple in the humidor for humidity. Yeah, that was ridiculous. And because I wanted to have it a little bit more professional, I constructed a small hygrostat. That means a regulation system for regulating the humidity. And I put it in a cigar box, and it was completely ugly, but it worked. And in that time, there was an online forum, Club Macanudo, and with a lot of cigar smokers. And one of them, he visited me and he asked, well, could you make me such a regulation system for me? Well, okay, I welded it, and then he posted a picture of that in the forum, and then another, and the third, and the fourth. And I asked me, okay, if I produce here a device which is connected with a power supply, it should be a little bit more professional. And well, that was the starting in making humidification systems, not humidors, only the humidification systems. And after doing that from 2000 to 2006, I remarked, if you have a perfect humidification device, but if your humidor is not correctly constructed so that the air can rise up and can sink down and can circulate in the humidor, the result will be that you have a very different humidity on the different levels in the humidor. And that was the reason why I asked me, well, okay, I have now the humidification systems, why not making humidors? And then I started humidor making, and the first humidors, the cabinets, it was a catastrophe because I had no idea how to do that. No idea. And the first cabinet I made, I put the humidification system inside, and the whole cabinet after 3 weeks was in 4 parts. Yeah, because the tension in the wood, it was winter time, and if you have 40 or 30% relative humidity in the environment, but 70% in the humidor, you get such a tension in the wood that that everything cracked. Yeah, and then I made a lot of experience how to make that in a way that the door will not be bellied, and everything is straight and works in the right way. And well, after one year and a half, I had a product, and I was convinced, well, that could work. And I built the first cabinet for myself, and I still have this cabinet here in not in my office, but in my showroom. And well, that was the beginning. We started.
Inspiring.
The first product we had was the big cabinet, and after the cabinet, the table humidors, and a mixture of that for storing boxes and single cigars. Yeah, but I am not. I studied engineering, constructing engineering, and economy, but I'm not a learned carpenter or something like that. So if you ask me to make a bed is simple, but for example, if you want to have a paper basket in a conic form with special connections, well, I have to read in a book because I don't know how works it, but it's really funny because we deliver so many humidors to other carpenters because they say a humidor is completely wrong built as a carpenter learns it, because a classical carpenter, he learns if you veneer a surface, you have to put the veneer on the right side and on the left side, the same one, that you don't get tension in the board. And if you look to a humidor, it's completely wrong constructed. And that's why a classical carpenter says, no, that's too risky for me. And so we are completely specialized on making humidors and not making a chair or a table or something like that. Yeah, it's really completely only humidors and the electronic humidification devices. For small table humidors over the cabinets on and walk-in humidors. Yeah.
Mark, I would love to, since we have you on the show, and this is I think a unique opportunity for so many cigar lovers out there to once and for all truly understand what's behind how a humidor truly works, what's behind the storage conditions of your cigars? What's behind the aging component? And I mean, give us a little bit of a humidification 101. What are some of the most common misunderstandings or misconceptions when it comes to the humidor, the humidification, the relative humidity you have inside or you're supposed to have inside, and how this whole thing should be set up so that all the cigar enthusiasts out there are in, in prime condition and have all the tools necessary to give their beloved cigars the right treatment.
Yeah. The biggest problem I see, and that's a mirror today, what we see in offered products in the internet. If you have a look to all these cigar fridges, yeah, these are normal wine fridges, and everybody thinks, well, or a lot of people thinks we have to cool down the air and to humidify. And the biggest problem is a very simple thing. That means how to get a constant humidity in the humidor on each level in the humidor. Well, that's the challenge. And why it is difficult? The reason is, if you change the relative humidity, the temperature is not changing. But if the temperature changes, the relative humidity is changing, because it's called relative humidity because it's always in relation to the temperature. So, for example, you have an aquarium without water, okay? A glass box. Now you make 70% relative humidity and 20 degrees in this glass box. You seal this box, you put the box in the sun, you wait until you have 30 degrees inside, and the result will be that the relative humidity sinks to 56, 58%. You put the aquarium back, you cool it down to 20 degrees, and you will see again 70% relative humidity. Okay. Now you do the same thing and you put cigars inside and a little bit of wood, an organic material which can store water. So, one example, if you take a piece of cheese out of the fridge and you put it on the table, it will dry out. If you take the cheese and you put it on a heater, it will dry out faster. Why? If this organic substance is heating up, the water evaporates. So we make the same experiment now with the aquarium with cigars. You put it in the sunlight to 30 degrees, and what you will see? You won't see that you have 58%. No, you have 65, 66, 72, 74. Okay. Why? Because the higher temperature makes that the water evaporates out of the wood and the cigars. Now you put back the aquarium with the cigars, the glass box with the cigars, and you cool it down to 20 degrees, and the result will be you have water at the glass, because the colder air can't keep the water inside and you get fog or drops. So if the temperature changes, the relative humidity changes too. And that's why it's so important if you have, for example, a big cabinet, and if the cabinet is in your room and your temperature in the room is not absolutely constant, the cabinet humidor must not be sealed, but it must be constructed in a way that this cabinet loses humidity all the time, and only the humidifier pushes the humidity again in the humidor. If you seal the humidor, and if the temperature is not constant, you will get a constant increasing of the relative humidity. And that's the biggest problem, or the biggest challenge to reach a constant level of humidity. And the second is the materials in the humidor. If you look to standard cabinet humidors coming from China or wherever, the shelves, for example, these are medium density fiberboards covered with a veneer on the right and left side. But in the inside of the long holes, you always see the raw medium density fiberboard. And if medium density fiberboard is stored by 70%, it starts stinking, muddy, and you get mold inside. It's a catastrophe. So we have first the construction, the material, and the fact that the air doesn't make that what you expect. The air or the relative humidity is not a parameter which makes a constant Verteilung. Wie sagt man das?
Distribution, you mean?
Yeah, it's not a constant automatic distribution. You have to enforce the humidity to the right position, to the right level in the humidor. And if the air outlet and the construction of the humidification system doesn't fit to the construction of the humidor, you won't be successful. It's the same thing if Mercedes, for example, decides, well, we make a new SUV, and if this car is ready, we think about which motor we put inside. That would be really stupid. It's better to plan it before. Otherwise, you always get problems. And that's the reality what I see. We have humidor makers, and they buy a humidification system from where else? But the construction doesn't fit together, and that's why you get the problem. One example, we have cabinet humidors, very expensive one, and they are humidified with aerosols. That means with the ultrasonic humidification systems. And if you produce these fine, tiny, foggy drops and you put it in the humidor, what do you think will happen if these drops comes on the cigar or on the shelf, on the wood in the humidor? It's a complete catastrophe. Or the other one with the heat steamer. Yeah, they heat the air with hot steam, and then you need air condition cooling down from the balance of energy. It's a complete catastrophe, yeah, to work in this way. So there are existing techniques, but you need to know which technique is okay for a cabinet, or for a table humidor, or for a walk-in humidor, or for a huge walk-in humidor. For example, we are planning at the moment for Tobaccoland in Austria. It's a humidor with 300 square meters. It's 8 meters high. And there you can imagine it's a complete different technique, like in a standard cabinet. Yeah. So not one technique, you always need to have the right technique for the right application, and then it works.
That makes a lot of sense. To cover some basics, what would you say are the temperature levels and the levels of relative humidity that you should be looking for when storing your cigars, and also when aging cigars over a prolonged period of time? And a little add-on question that Marvin posted on Facebook. He was a little confused now. So shall the humidor be airtight or rather not? And from what you just explained, I guess the answer is better not, right?
It depends from, yeah. For example, okay, first, tight or not tight. If you have a table humidor, no, I have to start different. If you have a humidification system which is able to replace the lost humidity after opening and closing the humidor in a very short time. The humidor, if it's not completely tight, makes nothing. If you have a classic table humidor, with tight, I mean you don't have to air your humidor, because the aroma of the cigar should be in the cigar and not in the air of the humidor. Yeah. So if you open a humidor, it's normally it's too much fresh air inside. So with tight, I mean the tightness of a humidor depends from the environment where this cabinet is positioned. If you have not a constant temperature and you have a complete tight humidor, you will get problems. It's well, that's my experience. If you have a table humidor with a passive humidification system, you need to have massive wood in the humidor, so that not only the cigars stores the water and the humidity, but the wood too. Because if you open the humidor in wintertime, for example, dry air comes inside and you close the lid, what happens? The passive humidification system is not able to replace the humidity in half an hour. Well, in this time, your cigars are playing humidification system. And that's the problem. You get problems with the wrapper. You get, it looks like if you have an explosion in your cigar, it's a catastrophe. And what I remarked in different tastings, when I make the tasting for the Habanos Day, for example, we make experience with different stored cigars. And I was really astonished. I thought that a dried out cigar, if you let dry out a cigar for 2 years, which cigar has a better taste? The 2 years dried out cigar, or a cigar which was stored 2 years by very fluctuating humidity from 60 to 80%. And the result is the dried out, the quality of the tobacco is better than in the cigar which was stored with very fluctuating humidity. Why? I don't know. But in 4 tastings, 50 persons had the same result. And that's really amazing, yeah? Because fluctuating humidity is poison for the aging process for the tobacco. So my personal experience is the Cuban tobacco is a little bit more hygroscopic, and that's why I reduce the humidity in my humidor where the Cuban cigars are inside to 66, 68. I don't like that if cigars are too wet,
Too moist.
because the draw resistance is very hard. The other provenience, well, about 68 or 70%, but it's really a personal question of taste. If for example, if you drink red wine, and the recommendation is drink a red wine by, for example, 80.3 degrees. Okay, that's the recommendation. But if it's too alcoholic for you and you like to drink it by 60 degrees, well, do it. And if you like it by 24, okay, do it. It's only the recommendation for the best objective aroma spectrum. And by the cigar, it's similar. Some smokers like to have very wet cigars with a lot of steam. Yeah, if you smoke the cigar, I don't like that, but that's a decision for everybody individually. For a cigar aging, I would reduce the humidity, well, to about 64, 65. I wouldn't smoke the cigar directly by this relative humidity. if it's stored by this humidity, but for a long time storing, I would reduce it. Well, the tobacco, the aging process will not be negative, but the risks of getting the erosium mold or the white spots on the cigar is much higher if the humidity is higher too. And that's why I would reduce it. But for the tobacco, it makes nothing. It's if you have 63 or 64 or 65, if you measure how much water in percentage of the weight is in the cigar between 63 or 66, it's nearly impossible to measure it. Yeah.
That's an excellent point. And do you also play with the temperature when considering long-term cigar aging? Do you bring it down ever so slightly?
Well, if I really want, or if my target is a professional cigar aging, that means I buy boxes with the target that I for 10 or 20 or 30 years. Then I really would reduce the temperature, but not too low. Lower than 80 degrees, I don't like it. I did make the tests for this long time, but only for 6 years. By 15 degrees, by 18 degrees, by 20 degrees, and by 25 degrees. And if you have, for example, very heavy cigars, or double ligero or whatever, or I remember the Cubans in 2001, they brought a cigar. It was a Romeo y Julieta Robusto, completely black, an oscuro wrapper. And this cigar, it was not smokable because it was so strong. It was a horror. So if you have such a cigar, and if you want to smoke this cigar by time, that means in 5 or 6 years, it's better to have a little higher temperature because the aging process is going faster. If your target is 30 degrees, 30 years, and the best result, I would reduce it, but not lower than, well, some people say 16 degrees. By this 5-year-old cigars, 16 degrees, I was not convinced. For my taste, I had the impression that the aroma changing process was not really balanced. But it may well be that it was the wrong time when I tasted it. But what happens if the tobacco is aging? You have different composites in the cigar. For example, you have the proteins, you have the tannins, and with the time, these molecules will be destroyed and replaced by simpler molecules. And if you read a tasting, for example, with, well, a little bit cloudy words describing the aroma, I always ask me, well, the description is in these tastings a description of the secondary or the secondary aromas and not of the primary aromas. And these secondary aromas, they started earliest after 6-8 years. So I'm always astonished if somebody says, well, this is it's a slightly white pepper. Well, I don't know the difference between white and black pepper. Sorry. So I'm not a professional cigar smoker, or I'm not somebody who is a cigar sommelier. Yeah? So that's my personal experience. What I can do is a perfect humidor, but I'm not a cigar professional taster. Yeah, everybody has to know his
Where you
limits.
belong. Do you feel, Mark, that aging cigar, and I'm fascinated by how you describe primary and secondary and maybe tertiary aromas even, and how they evolve over time. Do you think that is a desirable outcome of like taking a cigar that has all the potential to be aged for a prolonged period of time, and then you strategically set it aside because you know it will develop certain qualities that the cigar just cannot show at the beginning of its lifespan?
I have in my humidor the oldest cigar I smoke at the moment, but I only have one box. That's the Romeo y Giulietta from 2001. And the 20 years old cigar, if you offer somebody who always smokes fresh cigars, that means fewer than 3 years old, is completely irritated because the aroma is so completely different. And it's also different in smoking, because if you smoke a 20 years old cigar in the same velocity like a fresh cigar, you will get problems because the cigar will be hot. With the time, the tobacco loses the ability to keep the water. So a 20 years old cigar by 70% relative humidity doesn't have the 12.5 or 30 percentage in gram of water, but only 11 or 11.5. And that's really a difference. So you have to smoke it slower. And the aroma, you have to celebrate this cigar. You can't smoke this cigar, such a cigar, when we are talking now in a Zoom meeting, because you really have to concentrate, because you remark that there are aromas inside you have never. It's really an outstanding experience. It's really amazing. If you compare it with red wine, for example, if you have a really good red wine and you put it in the glass and you ask, well, why this wine is brown and not red? Yeah, and then you drink it and you remark, for example, you have a Saint-Emilion or whatever. If this wine is fresh, it's astringating, it's very sharp, and all these disturbing aromas are gone, and only the smooth aromas are present, and will show the character of the wine, and you can really good compare it with the cigar and with the tobacco. For example, I have 2 boxes, Boxing Day 2003, Cuaba Salomones and Monte Cristo 2, the Torpedo. Yeah. And these 2 boxes, I don't know what happened with these 2 boxes, but after 4-5 years, it was in 2011 or 12, that I remarked it the first time. I have these 2 boxes in my showroom, so if you visit me, you can smell on it. They are, how you call that? Wenn eine Zigarre umkippt, Reinhard, wie sagt man das? Das Aroma kippt
Yeah, it's a tricky question. It's when the aroma goes into a weird direction, when it's just off, you know, it changes its profile in a very negative way.
Exactly. It produces negative aromas, and with negative, I mean the following. If I let you smell inside this box, your eyes make, what's that? And it's a smell of, let me, you know, incense in the Catholic Church.
Absolutely.
Incense. Yeah. Das Harz von den Bäumen. Wie sagt man
It's
das?
a resin.
The dried resin, which is burned in the church. These cigars are smelling, have a smell of incense you can't imagine. And if you light on this cigar, you run out, because the aroma in the room, it's a complete catastrophe. You can't. It's not smokable, these cigars. Why this happened, I don't know. And when we were in Cuba, no, it was 2010. So it's 1 year earlier. I took 4 cigars to Cuba in a small aroma bag. And we were in the Laguito production. And we asked the chef de galera. I gave him this aroma bag. I was like, have a smell. And he smelled inside, and that was really amazing, because I show you what he did. One moment. So, was the following. He smelled inside. What do you mean? Everything is okay? I said, oh, yo, bullshit, bingo. Yeah. They know exactly what happened, but I have no idea what is the reason for this failure aroma. No idea. Until today.
That's
Whether
incredible.
it's in the wood or in the tobacco or wherever, no idea. So what I want to say, if you age cigars, you have to control them, because sometimes, not very often, but sometimes it may well be that your cigar, and then it's finished. Yeah.
Mark, because you mentioned it a few times, you were speaking about the moisture content of the cigars, which is a different discussion than the relative humidity. Do you think that people should look more into the actual moisture content of the cigar in order to have a reference rather than the relative humidity? Or do you just say, well, you have to keep both in mind, but you can't interchange them or look at only one versus the other?
The problem is how to measure the real percentage of water in the cigar. All these nice devices that you can buy with a needle and a sensor, you put it inside, try that, and then press to the cigar, and you see it changes. So it depends how dense is the cigar, what's the typical hygroscopicity of the tobacco is. So the only way to find it out is, and you will destroy the cigar, you take the cigar, you weight it on a very precise device, with a very precise device, yeah, and then you put it in the microwave oven and you cook it out until it's completely hot. You do it 3 or 4 times short before burning the cigar, and then you weight it again, and then you know, okay, that was 2.5 or 12.6 or whatever percentage of humidity in the cigar, but then your cigar is gone. Yeah. So if you have a humidity of about 70%, 68, 72, about 70%, normally your cigar will take out exactly this amount of water to have a percentage of between 12 and 30 gram in percentage. Yeah. And the interesting thing is the temperature is not relevant between 80 and 27 to 28 degrees. That's really interesting, because by 70% relative humidity and 25 degrees, you have much more water in the air as by 80 degrees and 70% relative humidity. But the cigar takes exactly that amount of humidity. And the explanation is not really complicated. When I started, I told you the example with the cheese on the heating. Yeah. So if the temperature increase, the cigar lose water. That means the cigar loses the ability to catch the water, and that's how the cigar is breaking itself to get too much humidity. If the temperature is by 30 degrees, for example, then you really remark by 70% that the cigar is really wet. And if the temperature is too low, you simply get the problem that the cigar can't keep enough water. And that's why, for example, it's outside, it's summertime, 30 degrees. You store your cigars by 18 degrees. You take it out of the humidor, you go out by 30 degrees and you light on your cigar. Oh, that's really interesting, because the cigar is losing so much humidity that it may well be that your wrapper can crack. And that's why I'm not a fan of cooling cigars. The best thing is to store the cigars by this temperature when you smoke. Yeah. Well, it's not
Good
always
point.
possible, but if you store your cigars by, for example, extremely 16 degrees for 5 years, you take it out and you go outside by 30 degrees, that's really not a good idea. I wouldn't do that.
Mark, we have plenty of questions from people joining us and watching. Yeah. Macy had his hand up first. I know, Macy, you're driving, or at least you were driving. I don't know if you're ready to bring your questions, but it's great to have you, and thanks for chiming in.
Thank you. Saludos. The question is, are you all ready for these questions? We'll find out.
Bring it.
What an esteemed guest, sir. I just settled the biggest case of my life driving. I need some more humidors, need some more storage space. So if I'm going to get some questions, but if you've got a tip on your best large model for box storage, I'm very interested in that. Hopefully you ship to the United States. If not, I'm going to have to figure something out, because I'm amazed by this discussion. The level of detail. This is a true Reinhard deep dive of epic proportions. This is amazing information. I couldn't agree more on the wrapper splitting. I mean, I'll just amen on all of this. And I didn't realize the aged cigars, they do smoke a little drier. And just so many thoughts I've had have been crystallized in this discussion already. It's just been amazing. And I thank you for that. And I just please, let's just nerd out on this really hard today, because this is amazing. So here are my questions. First, for box storage, honestly, if you store boxes in, say, like a Ziploc bag with Bovidas, you don't open them, you try to keep it constant. Perhaps you add, like I've got some LE Blue Cedar, you add that up. I mean, is that just a no-go? Is that just a terrible way? Because my thought is most cigar boxes are packaged in plastic, maybe with the Bovida, often without. So you really got just cedar wrapped in plastic for most of the life of the cigars until that's unwrapped, either at the retail level or maybe the consumer gets them home and moves them to him or her humidor. So could you comment on that? A second question is tips for maintaining constant humidity. So I use a series of desktop and large kind of Foot Locker style humidors. Should I just never open them? Because I do like to let the cigars breathe to get some fresh in there to help with mold prevention. But I mean, should I just open it real quickly, grab the cigar and close it as fast as possible? Because you do need to open the humidor inevitably at some point. And you know, air could, I imagine, go more stale than you want at a certain point. And third question is, I love woods. Can you talk about some of your favorite woods for veneers or to use, and perhaps even alternate woods other than cedar on the inside? Neutral woods. I've seen like maple, ash, all sorts of stuff being done. And thank you all very much. Love you all. Happy Wednesday.
Okay. I didn't understand everything because the connection was a little bit bad, but I tried to start with the last question, alternative wood. Why the Spanish cedar wood is used by the humidor making? It's a very simple reason. If you take the Canadian cedar wood or the red cedar, for example, or another aromatic wood, and you put your cigars in such a humidor, you will remark that the cigars will keep this aroma of the wood. If you have the Spanish cedar wood, you have the aroma of the tobacco or not of the Spanish cedar wood. And the question is, why? The reason is very simple. In former times, when the Portuguese and the Spanish conquers the Southern American continent, they looked on the wood. Oh, it has a structure like a cedar, and because we are the Hispanics, we call it Spanish cedar wood. Okay. Today, we make it a little bit different. You take a piece of wood, you put it on a gas spectrometer, and then you can see what's the typical aromas in this wood. And if you do that with the Spanish cedar wood and with the tobacco, you will remark that nearly 90% of the typical aromas are nearly identical. And that's why the Spanish cedar wood is very similar to the aroma of the tobacco. And that's the reason why the Spanish cedar wood is used in the humidor. If you search an alternative, I would take a wood which is stable, referring the humidity. That means no oak, because you have this acid in the oak, and it starts stinking a sour aroma of the Gerbsäure. Oh, no idea how you call that. Let me have a look. Gerbsäure. The tannic acid in the oak wood, that's a big problem. If you take other classical wood, you will get the problem that getting mold inside or a muddy, stinky air. I would recommend to take, for example, a really neutral wood like mahogany, for example, the Sapele mahogany or the Sipo mahogany, or like Elie Bleu, they use only Gabun or Okume. It's the same wood coming from Africa, only the port is different. That's why both timbers, both woods, it's the same, Gabun and Okume. But I'm not really, I don't like this wood. If the wood is dry, it's nearly neutral. But if you have a higher humidity, it produces an aroma of glue. Yeah. Of the white glue when we glue the plates making the humidors, this smell is very similar to the smell of the Gabun or Okume. So finally, what I would do is take a mahogany as an alternative wood if you want to use the Spanish cedar wood, but always have a look that the wood is resistible against humidity and doesn't start stinking, because there is a difference between the dry condition and the humidified condition. The second question was with the plastic or the cellophane or whatever, to take it out or not. Let's start with the cellophane on the single cigars. If your cigars are in cellophane, and if you have a classical table humidor, or for example, a cabinet with tablets or with trays, where all these single cigars are inside, I would let the cigars in the cellophane, because if you take it out and you put it in the humidor, every time if you open the humidor, the aroma of the tobacco will be given to the air in the humidor. And as bigger your humidor is, as more extreme is this effect. If you buy, for example, 50 cigars with cellophane, and if you have an empty box, I would take them out of the cellophane, put it in the empty box, close the box, put the closed box in the humidor, because the closed box storing in the humidor is the best way how you can store your cigars. Because if you take out one cigar out of the box, you have a little bit air inside the volume of the cigar. But if you open the humidor, the fresh air doesn't touch the cigar in the box. And that's why the cigars will keep the aroma much longer in comparison with you have a single cigar storing. If you have a classical table humidor, I wouldn't take out it of the cellophane because of this effect. And boxes, well, too much air to the tobacco is bad, but no air is bad too. So I would take it out, put the closed box in the humidor, and that's the way how I do that, because I don't like the complete sealed the complete sealed boxes with plastic, because if really no air comes to the cigar, it depends how fresh the cigars came in the box. If the cigars are really or have lost their ammonia, the NH3, well, it may well be. Or if the cigar are very mild, it's okay too. But as a common recommendation, I will take it out. And your first question, how to keep the constant relative humidity? Yeah, well, if you have a huge amount of cigar boxes, the most simple way is if you have a small separated room that you can humidify. Well, who has that? Okay. It's no problem if you have a big aluminium box. The Sargas boxes for the expeditions or something like that. But the question is how to produce a constant relative humidity. Well, I don't have the problem because I built these devices. So I take a Sargas box, I put this humidification system inside, some plates of Spanish cedar wood inside, and well, it's an ugly humidor, but it's working fine. Yeah. If you don't have a precise regulation system, then the solution with the Boveda in the plastic bag, well, it's better than nothing, but yeah. Yeah, you know, that's it's not what I would do. I'm really a fan of Boveda for very small table humidors, for about 20 or 30 cigars, or for travel humidors, something like that. But well, if you have bigger volume, it's difficult, because it takes a lot of time until you have the lost humidity replaced inside. And that what I recommended is taking out the boxes out of the plastic. Well, you need a precise device which is able to produce a constant relative humidity. Yeah, that's the only advice I can give you.
That was tremendous. Thank you, and thank you for your patience with my Wi-Fi. Thank you very much.
Over to Brian.
Good afternoon. This is fascinating. Mark, don't worry. I can't taste the difference between white and black pepper either. No, it's okay. I have the same problem. I agree. I echo what Macy was saying. This is really fascinating, and I think I'm gonna have to purchase one of these guys. I'm in the States as well, so euros to dollars and all that stuff. But I'm on the website, so I had 2 or 3 questions, if that's okay. In terms of what you're sort of providing in your products for people, I love your origin story. First of all, I think it's brilliant the way that you came into this business and you had a problem and you found a solution. You're like, well, if I can't buy these things and they're so damn expensive, I'm going to do it my damn self. I'm going to learn how to make these things. And so on the website, there's the Humidor building material, which is so cool. You've got the Spanish cedar wood and fittings. So the idea would be that maybe other people would like to have your same experience, I assume, if you could go into detail with that. And so you send them these things and they make their own humidor at home. And I'm also curious, if part of your plan in terms of what you're providing to the public is humidors at a good quality humidors at a more affordable price for everyone.
I didn't understand the question, the concrete question.
Well, I'm just curious how I didn't read everything on the website, but I just thought maybe if everyone was curious to know, is the idea that you send everybody these materials and they build their humidor at home?
Yes, sure.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
Sure. And what we, for example, if we have private persons or also carpenters, for example, a carpenter or an architect wants to make a humidor for a customer, and he gives me a call, or he orders the Spanish Cedar wood and a humidification system, and then I call him and I ask him some questions, and well, after some minutes, he asks himself, well, it's really a good idea to make it by yourself. If you make it by yourself as a private person without warranty and everything, no problem. So if you make a humidor and the lid is bellied, well, the lid is bellied. Well, but if you sell that product, it should fit, and it should be a really good product, yeah, without any failures. One example, if you use Spanish cedar wood in a cabinet humidor, and if you use for the illumination LEDs, very often after few months, the LED is darker and darker and darker, and the color of the LED is changing. Why? Because the etheric oils of the Spanish cedar wood destroys the electroluminescence cover of the LED and destroys it. So you have to cover the LED with an epoxy or with a polypropylene cover, which is resistible against these etheric oils. So if you don't know that, you make a humidor, and after half a year, you get the reclamation. So I have a lot of customers say, well, I have an old cabinet and I want to make a humidor out of that. And then I ask him, okay, send me a picture, send me the dimension. And then I explain him how to do that. And well, and it works. And but sometimes it doesn't work. One story that was really amazing. An architect orders an humidification system. And well, I ask him, you can send me your plans. I will check it, whether you constructed it in the right way. And the answer was, hey, come on, I am an architect. I know what I do. Okay, no problem. Half a year later, I get a call. Are you Mr. André? Yes. Your humidification system is crap. I say, why? I have water in my humidor. And on the top level, I have not more than 35%. And there, where the humidification system is positioned, I have water at the glasses. We have nearly 100% inside. What's a fucking product? So, okay, please tell me your name. Yeah, okay, told me. He was not in my systems. He didn't order a humidification system. And I asked him, sorry, but you don't have a humidor from of our Huminator series. Well, I have it. Yes, I have it. It was about the architect, and then the name. So, okay, please send me a picture of your humidor. And then he sent me a picture with his phone. And I called him again and said, please make a better photo, because it looks like that the shelves of your humidor are massive glass plates. I said, yes, these are glass plates. Okay, now the question for a 3-year-old boy: if you have a 2-meter high cabinet with 5 glass boards inside, which are completely tight from the front to the back wall and from the right side to the left side, you mount the sensor at the first level and everything is completely tight. Tell me how the sensor can measure the humidity. Your humidor is completely wrong constructed. Okay. 5 minutes later, I got a call from this architect, and he was crying, not crying, he was screaming. Oh, that's impertinent, because you make my work bad and what. So no, you are too stupid and too arrogant to ask me how to make it in the right way. So solve the problem by your customer, and then it will work. And he did it, and then it worked. So only to buy a high-class product, if the construction of the humidor doesn't fit, it's completely in vain. It's spent money for nothing.
Right.
And no, that's
brilliant.
the reality. Not very often, but sometimes it happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Is Humidor, is that like the Terminator? the Governator? I like that. Yeah,
Yes.
a couple more if that's okay. I was curious in terms of your products that you're bringing to the public, because your original conceit at the time was affordability. Some of your stuff obviously is, I'm sure, wonderfully expensive, but is part of what your design is to bring a really quality product at a more affordable price for everyone. So
Well,
that was the issue that you ran into initially as a consumer.
The problem is, if, for example, we have now finished the development of the complete brand new humidification system for table humidors, and my approach is, if I develop such a product, we make everything completely here in Germany. We don't buy parts from China, from everywhere. And the parts we use inside are no consumer products. These are all industrial products. And that's why the price is twice or more in comparison to the consumer product. But I know if I produce such a product in Germany, I will always be more expensive in comparison with China. So if I know that, I have to use the best parts, the best components that I can get on the market. Otherwise, it's a Me Too product, and it makes no sense for us. And
Right.
for example, for USA, for the huminators, we have the FCC certification, we have the naval certification, because we have 2 air carriers from the Navy, and there are 2 huminators in the Cigar lounge on the aircraft carrier. Therefore, we need to have this certification. But the problem is, if I want to export these products to USA, you can completely forget it. It's such a protection of the market that we have no chance to get this product through the customs. In spite, we have the certification. For example, Davidoff, they use the huminators in their cabinets, and in California, they didn't get the UL certification for the whole cabinet with the LED inside, with the Technic inside, because they refused to make it. And if you make an UL certification for a technical product in Germany, in USA, you pay about $2,000 for the UL certification. In Germany, the minimum is 28 to 30,000 euros for this certification. And well, we don't do that. That's really too expensive.
I'm in California. I was also curious, just because the story was so great. All these years later, the humorous happy accident of ordering way too much Spanish cedar. Do you still get your cedar from the same source from, what was it, 1999, now, all this time later?
At the moment, well, we use not the Spanish cedar wood from South America, because the South American Spanish cedar wood has too much silicate in the wood, and that makes that the resin comes out very in a very hard way. And we use the Spanish cedar wood from West Africa. And at the moment we have the problem. We ordered in November, and the 8 cubic meters of Spanish cedar wood are in the port of Hamburg, and we don't get it out because there are problems with the quality. There are branches, and it's not sorted in the correct way. And that's why the importer is discussing with the supplier in West Africa. And at the moment, the whole supply chain is a complete catastrophe. It's a complete catastrophe. It's not a question of price, because this wood is, nobody used this wood. Okay, for music instruments or for sailing boats, for example. But the market is so tiny, and you can forget it. It's not a problem of price, but the supply chain is completely broken down, and that's really a problem at the moment. We have five projects at the moment in our carpentry, and we can't finish it because we don't get the wood. That's really, yeah.
Fascinating. Okay, one more, Reinhard. Sorry, one more. I'm curious, because we're talking about and cedar, and when I read cigar reviews a lot, and I'm smoking, and they're talking about cedar comes up a lot, and they're tasting and smelling of cedar, and I'm wondering, how much do you feel like is that coming from the leaf, and if so, where does that come from in the process, or do you feel like sometimes that's a component of where it's been stored, where it's been kept, where it's been aged in the process of its life in terms of being near wood? Is that where we get that note?
Well, in the Spanish cedar wood, you have etheric oils. It's called farnesans or colordanes, or the long chain polyphenols. And these products make this typical smell. And if you have, for example, a shelf made of a 25 millimeters thick material, and if after 2 years the smell is a little bit weak, you take a sanding paper 2 times over the surface, and it's smelling like the first day. So the Spanish cedar wood that we use, some supplier make a kiln drying, but we don't kiln don't a kiln drying because with these high temperature you get a loss of the typical smell. And what we do is we take the wood and we leave it for 3 or 4 years to lose the humidity on the natural way. And that's the reason why we need a lot of wood in reserve, because before we can use it, it's the minimum of 4 years old. Yeah, but the kiln dried Spanish cedar wood smells different. And Spanish cedar wood, it's only the popular name, the botanical name of the Cedrela. That's the Latin name, and you have very different aromas in the Spanish cedar wood depending from where the Spanish cedar wood comes. For example, a Spanish cedar, Cedrela odorata, has a different smell of Cedrela mexicana or Cedrela batata or Cedrela angustifolia or whatever. So you have to know exactly which kind of the Cedrela wood you buy. And what we also had in Germany was one importer that was really a criminal. He took the Gabon wood and he treated it with oil smelling like Spanish cedar wood. But well, if you know the structure of the wood, the Gabon and the Spanish cedar wood, from the optical appearance, it's nearly very similar, but only nearly. And there are some signs when you can unterscheiden.
Differentiate, you mean?
No, yeah, you can differentiate whether it's the Spanish cedar wood or the Gabon. Yeah, but yeah, it's
counterfeit cedar wood.
Sorry.
Counterfeit. I've never heard of that.
It was it was faked. It was faked with it was oil treated. Yeah, but it's ridiculous. But because the smell is completely different. Yeah, it's very present and too strong.
If I'm smoking a cigar and I'm getting notes of cedar, like I heard of one factory where in the rolling room they have cedar chips on the floor, like all covering the ground. Do you think that note is coming from the cigar's life from beginning to end in the storing and making and aging process? Or where would the leaf get that note on its own in nature?
Oh, there was a break. I didn't understand. I had no connection. Could you repeat it, please?
Oh, sorry. I'm just curious. Like if I smoke this cigar and I get a note of cedar, is that coming from the leaf? And if so, where does that come from in nature? Or do you think that's part of the process of the cigar in terms of making it and the rolling room and the aging and?
Yeah, and now it's coming out of the tobacco, because that I told you that the typical aromatic components in the Spanish cedar wood, not in the other cedar one, but in the Spanish cedar wood, is very similar to the cigar. So, for example, the Sumatra tobacco of the dry Sumatra cigars is very, very similar to these typical Spanish cedar wood aroma. For example, we have in Holland, in the Netherlands, a company. It's called De Olifant, and they make Sumatra cigars, dry cigars, not for the humidor. And that's really interesting because these cigars have a very, very present smell of the Spanish cedar wood. For example, if you store your cigars in an environment with Canadian cedar wood, your cigar will have a very present smell of the Canadian cedar wood. Yes, but if you smoke then the cigar, well, these disturbing aroma, if it's not a chemical, for example, if you have in your humidor natural cigars and aromatized
Aromatized
cigars with artificial aroma, yeah, That you really will remark also if you smoke, because that's really changing the character of the tobacco. But if you have a little bit hand cream on your hand and you touch your cigar, 2 weeks later, you will smell this cream from your hand. But if you smoke, it may well be that you get a short smell of this cream in your nose. But if the tobacco is burning, the character of the tobacco is deciding the aroma and not the different aroma. That's an important thing, because always the discussion, if I put in my humidor cigars from Cuba, from Nicaragua, from Domrep, and they are mixed, is there something like a aroma transfer from one cigar to the other? So if there would be such a present aroma transfer, I would do the following. I buy 1,000 Quinteros and 50 Behicas. I put them together, and then I only have Behica cigar. That's fantastic and very cheap. Does it work? No. Well, if you're a Christian and if you go in a mosque, you don't convert automatically to the Islam. So it's a question here inside. And a cigar is not changing its composition if a Cuban cigar is stored beside a Cuban cigar. Well, if you have a very old, 20 years old cigar with not really present aromas in the nose, and you put these old, mild cigar together with 50 fresh rolled cigars. Well, after 2 weeks, you smell on these old cigars and you have the impression, my goodness gracious, what a super present aroma. Okay, light it on, and what will be the result? It's mild. It's the question of the tobacco, how the tobacco changed, and not the question whether an aroma springs from one cigar to the other. And we make blind tastings with 4 cigar sommeliers. And we stored Cubans beside Domrep besides Nicaragua beside Mexico, and so on. Nobody was able to find out which cigar lays between the others. No, not one. So, well, I think it's also a little bit of the misty arguments, but yeah, it's more fantasy than reality.
Right. Thank you so much. Cheers. Thanks, Reinhard.
Of course, Brian. Adrienne, you had a question as well. Please chime in. Good to have you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks very much for the nice discussion. My question was, I have like several humidors, and I remarked that in some humidors, although I think the humidity is quite stable, some cigars like stay soft and some get rather hard over time. So do you think that's a problem of the humidity, or what's the problem that causes this effect?
Different vitolas or the same vitola?
It doesn't matter on the vitola.
You say they are harder. Normally a cigar gets harder. Well, if the cigar is some years old, the elasticity of the tobacco is going down and down and down, and that's why an old cigar is much more how you call that?
You mean denser?
It's much more sensitive. If you make to an old cigar, the wrapper can crack immediately. By a fresh cigar, if it falls on the floor, will not happen. But
that wasn't what I meant. What you mean is like if the cigar is like really aged 10 or 15 years and it loses its capability to keep the moisture, like you said before, then it gets also a bit harder. But the other effect was that it just somehow it gets harder, and it feels like it is like if there was more tobacco inside than before. And I wasn't sure if like why did that happen? Was it because the humidity wasn't correct? Was it because probably maybe the humidity wasn't stable over time, so it took on humidity and lost humidity and so forth? Or have you ever seen that effect? Or
did you remark that if the cigar is from the touching appearance harder, is the draw resistance also harder or not?
Yeah, I'd say yes.
Because that I can't explain, because normally I bought in 2011 or 12 a box of Hoyo Epicure #2. And these cigars were so hardly rolled, I cut every cigar, it was not smokable. I had a red hat, yeah. So forget it completely. A very, very hard resistance drawing on the cigar. After 5-6 years, the cigar touches still very hard, but because of the fact that the tobacco lose the capacity keeping the water, the tobacco reduce its volume, and the draw resistance is much, much better. That's why in my experience, it's exactly the opposite. If the cigar is very soft, it may well be that it's over humidified, and if the tobacco has too much water, you can have the effect that the resistance is too high. But what your experience, I have no explanation therefore.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe I have to think about it a bit. But I thought in the beginning it was over humidified, but it was strange that it usually, as you say, when it's over humidified, it's also soft, but that it gets hard. It's somehow strange.
What I can tell you is, years before, I had a cigar event with a great insurance, and they want to have some boxes Monte Cristo Open Master. Okay, we bought 4 or 6 boxes, I don't know. And not all cigars were smoked, and I wanted to put them back in the box. I didn't get the cigars inside the box. Okay, leave it in the humidor, get back in my showroom, and then I looked on the cigars. Sorry, I don't have the cigar here, but what I can tell you is, I have cigars, I have them still in my showroom, Monte Cristo Open Master. In one box, we have a ring gauge of 51, 52, 53, 54, and that's really amazing. The average weight of a Monte Cristo Open Master is normally between 10 and 11 grams. We had in this box cigars with 8.6 grams until 15.4. So it may well be that if the cigars are handcrafted, perhaps you're not lucky in choosing the right cigar or whatever, but well, that's a construction problem of cigar making. If there are too much tobacco inside. And that's, by the way, the reason when we make cigar events and tastings, we always weight the cigars. And for example, a standard Robusto, we only accept cigars between 10 and 12 grams, not fewer, not more, because the result is completely different. And that's really amazing, especially by the Cuban cigars. By the non-Cuban cigars, if you wait, for example, a Davidoff cigar or whatever, it's really a very, very constant weight. But by Cuban cigars, we had 8.6 to 15.4. That's 80-90% difference. That's really amazing. Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, I never had the effect in the humidor that I bought from you, which is, I can also tell the other one, really a great product. So thank you very much.
That can happen in every humidor. For example, I had a customer and he told me, Mr. Andre, I bought a big cabinet from you, but I have white spots on my cigar. I thought in your humidor it won't happen. So sorry, but I'm not a magic. If you have the Orosium mold on your cigar, or your cigar is producing these white spots, it may well happen in every humidor. It's not a question of the quality of the humidor. The question of the quality of the humidor is, do you have the right humidity inside and what aroma you have in the humidor? That means if there is the wrong material inside, you will get problems, sure.
Mark, just a brief one, because you mentioned it and everybody likes to discuss it, and there's millions of blog articles written about this and controversy until there's no tomorrow. Plume or mold? You were waiting for that, right?
Well, the question is, what is bloom? In 90%, when I get cigars for inspecting, and you put it under the microscope, you will see the Orosium mold. The Orosium mold, you have it in your madrats, in your bed, in your clothes, everywhere. And the Orosium is mold, yes, but it doesn't stinks moldy. And the difference to the classical bad mold, that means the Aspergillus mold, is the Orosium mold doesn't eat your cigar, doesn't connect with your cigar. It's only on the surface and you can wrap it away and it's gone. If you have real mold, you smell it. The bloom, I read so much theories about that, what it is. Is it sugar or salt or whatever? What we can say is, the question is, why do you get the Orosium mold on the cigar? And when do you get it? Mostly it's in spring and in autumn. So if the temperature is changing from colder to warm and from warm to colder, why? As I told you at the beginning, if the temperature is changing, the cigar loses water, it evaporates water. And that what happens is that the water from the inside of the cigar is evaporating about the wrapper. And during the process, the water takes the minerals, that means the kalium, the magnesia, out of the tobacco, transport it to the wrapper. And now you can ask, what does the Orosium mold eat? Exactly that, minerals. And that's why if you have changing in the temperature, it's a complete normal process that you get, or you can get, don't have to, but you can get these white spots on the cigar if you don't smell mold. And that's my final conclusion. I put it away. I don't throw the cigar away. Yeah? I only take a small brush and put the Orosium away, and you can smoke the cigar, makes nothing. What I never have seen is you have some chemical tastes for sugar or for, how you call that? Let me have a look. In English, Stärke.
Starch.
Starch?
Yes.
Stärke. Starch, okay. Yeah, for cooking, like Scheiße, was heißt denn Mehl? Was heißt denn Mehl, Reinhard?
From flour, you mean?
flour. Ah, okay, okay. There are chemical tastes, and then you can have a look. Well, does it react on sugar, on starch, or whatever? I have never seen it. It was nearly always the kalium and magnesium and the orosium mold, but the orosium mold, as I said, is not the problem. But what I have seen, it was beginning the 2000s. The Cubans, they really had a big problem. I don't know why, but I think that they exaggerated with kalium and magnesia fertilizer. Mm-hmm. And I had cigars. You lighted them, and then you draw on the cigar, and then you have seen sparks coming out of the cigar. That was really amazing. Like a lighter, yeah, you put from the firestone in your hand and then on the fire, and sparks everywhere. That was really amazing. It was a sparking cigar, yeah, and that's really, and these cigars, they produce this bloom or mold in a way you can't imagine that. I have pictures on the website, also with a PDF document in German and English, and there you can see pictures of mold you can't imagine. But these cigars, I have them. It was a box of Cohiba Selección from 2001 or 2003. I'm not sure. 2001, I think. Yeah, February 2001. And I still have this box. And if you have a look on the cigar, they have an optical appearance like bought yesterday. Yeah, but in the beginning, you can't imagine what kind of bloom or mold was on the surface of these cigars. It was really incredible.
Fascinating. Absolutely. Well, Mark, I could listen to you for days, and this is incredible. It's a geek session for everybody who's truly curious, and I very much enjoy it. So many thanks. I would like to hand over the microphone to our dear brother Cy Sweeney from Ireland for one of the final questions for tonight before we wrap things up. So Cy, take it away, brother.
Greetings, guys. Everybody, good to see you. Here, just a quick one. While you were saying that about the mold and the plume, I legged it for a minute, and there's something. A cigar has been bugging me for 12 months, and it's this cigar here, right? And at the bottom, there's no plume, there's no mold, but there's blackness just here.
Oh,
what is that? Any idea? And it's been stored. It's been stored with other cigars that have no problem in the same humidor. And then I switched it to a different humidor just in case. And it hasn't grown, hasn't, but it's right there, as you can see.
Well, it's very, very seldom, but sometimes it's possible that...
It's very dark, see it?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What it may well be, I'm not sure, but it may well be that it's the Aspergillus niger. It's called black mold. And that's normally, it's impossible that the Aspergillus niger grows on a cigar because the cigar is too dry, therefore. And normally the Aspergillus niger is growing by very, very low temperature, about 6 to 7, 8 degrees. I have never seen that. Can you put it in the camera for a better focus, or a little bit illumination, because let me make this bigger. One moment. How can I make the picture bigger?
Slide over maybe when I talk or something. And it's a good cigar. It's not like it's.
Reinhard, can you make a full size picture of?
Let me try. If I pin Cy, can you see it now?
No, it's completely.
I'll take off the background here to see if. Boom, 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 boom. Where's the background? But it's pure black. It's black, and then obviously normal tobacco comes through. But it was surprising because it came in a humidor. This cigar came in a humidor, and it was, I think it's, the African wood humidor. What's it, maca wood or something?
Makassar.
Yeah, wood. And every other cigar, when it started happening, which was very quickly after I got the humidor, I was worried about it. So then I put it into a different one. Then I said I'd take it out all to see would it grow a little, if it was mold. And it didn't grow. It just kind of stayed the same. So I'm afraid, should I smoke it? Should I not smoke it? And it's a damn good, and it's an expensive cigar. You know what I mean? So
if you cut 10 or 15 millimeters from the cigar, is the black color also inside of the cigar?
I don't know because I haven't cut it.
Try it. But I have seen a lot of things, but a black cigar food I have never seen. I have never seen.
And I've
never seen before.
Either. That's why I was a bit thinking, what the hell is that? And then I was afraid it was going to spread to other cigars in that humidor. So I moved it out, and I tried it in another humidor with less expensive cigars, see what it spread, and it didn't spread. So
yeah,
I don't know what, but I actually will cut it. I will cut it this evening just out of curiosity, and I'll message Reinhard to say and he can tell you if it was in it deep in the cigar or not.
The
interesting
thing
on the foot.
Yeah,
it's predominantly just on the foot there, and it's like it covers probably 65% of the foot, and then you have a glimmer of hope there in the other 30%.
The interesting thing is, if you take such a cigar and you give it in a laboratory, that's the way I did with the Eurotium and all the other plume or whatever. We have in Germany a company, it's called Fresenius Medical Care, and they offer, you pay some €100 and then you get an analysis of all that, what is of mold or whatever on the cigar. And that would be really interesting what that is, but it's a little bit far from USA to send it here to Germany, I think, huh?
Yeah, but I could send it to you. I could send you. You could give it to them. But the thing with it is as well, I'm not going to mention any names, but it's like a really top end, well-known company, and it's a top end special cigar. So, it's not, it should. I'm surprised. I'm very surprised. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That it's like that has happened to it. But it's the only cigar ever I've seen like that. I've never seen a cigar like that.
And it was not from the beginning, you say. It comes during the time in the humidor. It was not from beginning black.
Yeah, it came in the particular humidor. It came in the humidor was a gift from somebody in the cigar world and a specialist humidor maker. And the cigar came in that humidor. When you opened it, it was there. And it looked fine. I obviously put other cigars in as well, because the more humidors, the merrier. And after a couple of weeks, I was taking out a cigar, and I said, "What the hell is going on with that?" I just curiously, I said, "What's that?" And it came on it, and I was like, "What the hell is it?" Because I actually didn't know what it was. I've never seen it, and I've been smoking cigars a long time, and I've never seen anything like that. Penelope, give it a rest. My cat. She's bugging me.
I think your cat is guilty by this cigar, Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but she wasn't around.
Pissed on it. Or...
Yeah, she wasn't around then. She's only 9 months old. Penelope, go away. She gets jealous when Daddy talks to anybody.
Yeah, but that's really interesting, because if you have failures in the tobacco, for example, green spots or yellow spots or white spots. Well, also black spots. Black spots, that's always a problem, but then you would see that from the beginning and not after some no idea. Sorry, I've never seen that.
Yeah, I won't cover the label, but I'll cover the label, but it's gone. Like there's not a spot anywhere. It's just on the foot, under the foot. So there you go. You know what I mean? So anyway, what was my question? Jesus, with all that, I forgot my question. Oh yeah, here's the question. You know, in the 30s when Zino Davidoff came back from his travels in South America and Central America, he was credited with inventing the first desktop humidor, you know, or cabinet, whatever he invented, because he wanted to try and keep the humidity. Where do you get the idea of that from? And obviously it would have been all wood. And you see these days with so many humidors, you know, there's wood and glass and, you know, and all that. Would it not be better to have humidors that are completely made of wood? Does the glass, because glass is porous, I know wood is porous to a certain extent. Why are they putting glass in humidors? Why can't you just have wood? Like, you know, even the desktops now, you have glass ones. And I got the odd glass one and then I broke one the other day because I was moving house. And, you know, when you're moving house, you're putting away stuff, obviously something. So does it make a difference if there's glass in a humidor, or basically does it make a difference not? That's the second question. And why did Davidoff come up with the idea of bringing humidifying cigars anyway, way back then?
It was a simple, they remarked when cigars were imported the first time from Havana in Germany, it was in 1880, 90. And before the cigars comes to the end customer, the cigar was minimum 3 or 4 years old from the importer in the big stocks. And they remarked that in the origin countries, the cigars have a different taste as in Germany, for example. And the idea of Davidoff was not new. A very long time before, do you know these small, in Germany, we had these green plastic parts with an orange sponge inside for humidifying stamps. Yeah, you know that?
Yeah.
And I remember that my grandfather, he had for his pipe tobacco such a device in a box for humidifying. And Davidoff was the first who made a humidor as a commercial product. But the humidifying is more than 100 years old. Yeah, the experience that if the tobacco is too dry, that's not really fine to smoke. But there's a difference. For example, in England, if you speak with people from England, they have a different cigar storing culture, because that's a question of history. In former times, the customs were not to one piece of cigar, but the weight of the tobacco. And that's why they imported the tobacco and the cigars as dry as possible to England. Not really very good idea, but that's the reason why in the English market, well, 60, 65, that's a question of the history. But to your question, Davidoff was simply the first who was able to sell a commercial product called Humidor. So Davidoff didn't invent the Humidor, but he called it the first time Humidor. Now the second with the glass, well, some people want to see their cigars and the others not. But my recommendation is, if you have a table humidor, cigars should be protected from light. That's why I would recommend a closed humidor. If you have a cabinet and there are boxes inside, makes nothing, because well, cigars are in the box. But well, and if the cigars direct sunlight, it's forbidden, sure. Otherwise, you have a terrarium and not a humidor. That you know that. But I wouldn't recommend to take a glass humidor if you have single cigars inside, and if the cigars are longer than 1 or 2 years inside.
Yeah. And just going on to the thing about that, just in what you brought up. Jeez, I sound like Brian now asking a million questions. Sorry, Brian. And I love you, Brian. You know that, brother, from the heart. But I've got, you know, it's a Van Dalen shop in Holland there, or what? Van. A friend of mine has gone over. He brings me back. He's bringing me back some boxes. He can only get boxes of Magnum 54s at the moment. He was telling me they're fairly new, right? I'll put them in the humidor, but normally I take them out and I put them in. But so you recommend put the box in. So will I not open the box before I put it in? Just put it straight in, because they'll have to age for a couple of years anyway.
Only for controlling. I would, well, all 6 months, I would open the box to check whether you have a bloom or the erosium mold. If you have, brush it away. Sometime controlling, but only in the closed box. If you have the possibility to store in closed boxes, do that. Yeah.
Yeah, because he'll be bringing them back I'll get them off him next Monday. And he did say to me, he said, going to have to air dry the thing off to get the date, but he thinks the date is only 221, 222. So they're going to need a couple of years aging. So, yeah, so you reckon just open every 6 months. Yeah, and just have a check. Okay. Yeah. Listen, thank you for your time. Much appreciated. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody, for the wonderful questions. What an incredible session today. Like, super fascinating. Mark, I'm so grateful that you took so much time out of your evening and spend it with us to answer all these questions. It's truly fascinating, and what a tremendous craft that often gets overlooked. You know, people can be so picky about their cigars and their cigar choices, their favorite brands, and all the tasting notes, and then we so often tend to overlook the critical aspect of the storing conditions and how to actually take care of your beloved cigars. And today was a fabulous evening and a fabulous show to better understand what's actually happening and how people could improve their cigar storage and aging. So many thanks for your time and for all your insightful thoughts. Greatly appreciated.
If there are further questions, you always can send me an email, info@humidor.de, and I will try to, when I'm fit again. I remark, if I don't smoke, I start coughing. I have to smoke again. Okay. Yeah.
I'll send you over that cigar. Do you want me to send you over that cigar so you can have a look at it? Because I'm not going to smoke it.
That would be really super. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send it. I'm not going to show the name of it, but just don't tell anybody the name.
We'll get you guys connected, and we'll make sure you can take care of it. And then, Mark, we're going to do a follow-up show, and we want to learn what this actually is. Okay.
Cool.
Thanks everybody for tonight.
Bye.
It was a brilliant show. I really I'm delighted and happy that Marc André joined us tonight. Mark, big thanks to you.
I say thank you.
Thanks to everybody watching, joining us today. Please stay with us. Join us again next week. We will be here, of course, with another Light 'em Up show. Sin Coburn will be with us next week from Dissident Cigars. So I look forward to that. Thanks for tonight, everybody. Take care, Light 'em Up, and I'll see you again next week. Thanks, everybody. Ciao, ciao.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Ciao.